I'm 32, and my name is Aaron. I work in finance. Boring to most, but stable, rewarding, and, let's just say, generous when bonuses roll in. I'm not flashy. I don't drive some gleaming sports car or wear tailored suits to impress strangers. I keep things low-key, quiet. That's probably why my family thinks I'm easy to walk over. Growing up, I was always the dependable one, the mature kid, the peacemaker. My younger sister, Kayla, on the other hand, was the star. Always loud, always dramatic, always the center of attention. She could crash a car and somehow get praised for her bravery in surviving it. I, meanwhile, once got grounded for getting a B+ in calculus because it wasn't trying hard enough. You get the picture. Anyway, after college, I moved out, built a quiet life, worked my way up, and tried to stay out of family drama. But even from a distance, they always had a way of pulling me back in. First, it was helping with the down payment on the family home when my dad got laid off. Then it was co-signing the shared credit card so they could rebuild their credit. Eventually, I was covering the taxes on the property, then the repairs, then the utilities, just this once. Somehow, those once-in-a-while favors turned into monthly expectations. And I didn't protest. Not really. I convinced myself I was just helping my aging parents. Doing the right thing. That it wasn't worth the confrontation. I kept things quiet, automatic, even invisible. But that invisibility stretched beyond my money. I wasn't just overlooked. I was unseen. Then came the quiet dinner. It started with a text from my mom. We're just having a little dinner this Saturday. Just us. Quiet, casual, nothing fancy. Kayla might stop by too. Would be great to catch up. I remember reading that and smiling. It felt normal. I hadn't had a meal with them in months. Maybe they were softening. Maybe the distance was working. I picked out a clean button-down, got a bottle of wine, and even took time off to leave work early. The drive over was peaceful, just sunset and silence. Then I pulled up. There were balloons on the mailbox. Pink and gold ones. Cars lined down the block. I parked 2 streets away and walked up slowly, already feeling the knot in my stomach forming. When I opened the front door, it hit me. The noise, the perfume, the music thumping from a speaker in the living room. A massive banner hung across the archway. Welcome, baby Ellie. And standing beneath it, my sister, cradling her bump, beaming, surrounded by women in floral dresses and relatives I hadn't seen in years. I didn't even get a hello. Just a few nods, some fake smiles, and then my dad noticed me and raised his glass. A toast, he announced, clinking his wine. To our family, and especially to Aaron, whose bonus this year made all this possible. A real family contribution. The room cheered. Kayla winked at me. My mother nodded approvingly, as if I had just handed them a trophy. I smiled. It was automatic. Polite. Empty. I felt hollow inside. I stayed exactly 23 minutes. Long enough to shake hands, nod through some small talk, and hug a distant cousin who thought I was someone else. No one asked me a question. No one checked if I was okay. They just paraded my contribution like it was a group effort. Like it didn't cost me sleep, stress, weekends of overtime. When I slipped out the door, no one noticed. I sat in my car, still gripping the wine bottle I never even uncorked, and stared at the dashboard. I should have known. This wasn't about catching up. It was never just dinner. That night, I logged into my bank account. I found the transfer I had sent the month before, $7,500, marked vaguely as home support. I reversed it. Then I logged into the joint card and froze it. Finally, I opened the property deed folder I'd kept tucked away in my secure cloud storage. My name was still listed, something they conveniently forgot every time they talked about our house. I called my lawyer. By sunrise, papers were filed. Ownership restructured. The automatic tax payments, gone. Insurance, revoked. The utilities were now flagged for reassignment. And the deed? It no longer belonged to them. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of guilt or second-guessing, but because, for the first time in years, I finally felt like I'd seen myself. And I wasn't invisible anymore. And that was just the beginning. The next morning, I didn't check my phone. I didn't need to. I knew what was coming. I brewed my coffee slowly, sat by the window, and watched the street fill with commuters while my inbox began to flood. First, a missed call from my mom. Then a text from my dad. There's something wrong with the house paperwork. Call me back. Then Kayla. Did you do something weird with the card? Mom's freaking out. I sipped my coffee and waited. At 10:12 a.m. sharp, the call came in. I let it ring until the last second, then answered. Morning, I said, casual. What is going on? That was my dad. No hello, no small talk. Just full steam ahead. The bank called about the mortgage. They said the deed's been reassigned. Why would they call you about it before us? And the taxes, did you cancel the tax account? I took another sip. I did. You what? I canceled it. And I pulled my name off the shared card. And I reversed the last payment you used to book a DJ for Kayla's quiet dinner. There was silence. Then, the sound of him putting the phone on speaker. I could hear my mother now, her voice rising in the background. We didn't book the DJ, Aaron. We needed him. It was a baby shower. I stayed quiet. You always do this, my mom snapped. Act like you're some hero, then throw a tantrum when we don't clap loud enough. I didn't want applause, I said quietly. I wanted honesty. You used my money to plan a party, lied to me to get me there, and then announced it like it was some noble sacrifice I volunteered for. My dad scoffed. You did volunteer. You said you'd help with the house. With family. That's what this is. No, I said, my voice steady now. Family is trust. And you broke it. Another pause. I could hear Kayla now too. She must have come over. Seriously, Aaron? You're being this dramatic over a baby shower? It was supposed to be special. It was. For you. As usual. Her voice got sharper. Just admit it. You're jealous. You don't have a wife, or a kid on the way, or even anyone to share your stupid bonus with. You just have money and spreadsheets. That one stung more than I expected. I didn't respond right away, and she took that silence as victory. But I wasn't done. I used my bonus, I said slowly, to pay off the balance on the house. Then I sold it. Last night. The screaming started immediately. My mom was shrieking, "You can't do that." My dad kept yelling, "That's our home." And Kayla just kept saying what? Over and over like she couldn't compute it. I was still on the deed, I reminded them. And I've been paying the mortgage for 5 years. Technically, it was never yours alone. You're kicking your own parents out of their house. My mom's voice cracked, trying to sound hurt, fragile. She was good at that. She'd used it when I was 10 and didn't want to give Kayla the last piece of cake. She used it when I was 20 and said I couldn't co-sign her car lease. I gave you 5 years, I said. 5 years of payments, of covering bills, of fixing the roof, the plumbing, the mold in the basement. You gave me a quiet dinner that turned into a public shaming. So yeah, I sold the house. Aaron, be reasonable, my dad growled. Where are we supposed to go? I don't know, I said honestly. But I suggest you start looking. The sale closes in 2 weeks. The line went dead. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't dance around my apartment or fist pump the air. I just stared out the window again, watching a couple walk their dog and an old man sweep his porch. It was peaceful, uncomplicated. Later that day, I got a call from the real estate lawyer I'd worked with. Everything's in motion, she confirmed. New owners excited. Cash buyer. No contingencies. Quick close. I nodded. Good. That's good. I didn't hear from my parents again for 2 days. Then came the email, a desperate, wordy letter from my mother, trying to explain how the party wasn't meant to exclude me, how they were just caught up in the excitement, how I was always the reliable one, the generous one, the strong one, and how they couldn't imagine losing their home in such a cold, transactional way. It ended with, "Please, don't let money destroy this family." I almost laughed. Money hadn't destroyed the family. They had. But I didn't reply. I just forwarded the email to my lawyer with a short note. Do not respond. Stay on schedule. What I did respond to, however, was the message that came the next day. It was from Kayla. She wasn't crying. Not yet. She was furious. She accused me of ruining her pregnancy, of adding stress, of making mom sick with worry. Then, as if none of that had landed, she said the one thing I should have expected. You're still my brother. Fix this. I didn't. But I did do something else. And that's where things took a turn even I didn't see coming. I didn't plan to reply to Kayla at all. I thought silence would be enough. But sometimes silence isn't loud enough for people like her. Sometimes, you need to let the thunder roll before they look up and realize the sky's changed. The next day, I got a call from a blocked number. I almost ignored it, until something in my gut told me to answer. Hello. A man's voice, firm and unfamiliar. Mr. Aaron Quinn? Yes. My name's Paul Devlin. I'm the acquisitions manager for Westridge Capital. We recently purchased a residential property listed under your name. Well, formerly under your name. The closing is proceeding smoothly, but the occupants are, refusing to vacate. I rubbed my temple. Of course they are. I'm calling as a courtesy. We'd rather avoid legal measures, but if they don't leave by the move-out deadline next Friday, we'll need to proceed with formal eviction. Just wanted to keep you in the loop. Thank you, Mr. Devlin. You've been more courteous in 5 minutes than they've been in 5 years. He chuckled, not unkindly. Sorry for the drama. Happens more often than you'd think. After I hung up, I sat with that for a moment. It hadn't occurred to me that my parents might dig in their heels. I assumed they'd be angry, yes, but quietly pack, maybe cry a little, guilt trip me over brunch. But this was new. So I did something I rarely do. I took the day off work. I drove to the house, the old house, as I had started calling it in my mind. The driveway was full, my dad's truck, my mom's compact, and Kayla's SUV with the baby on board sticker that made my eye twitch. The yard still had remnants of the party, an arch of deflated balloons, a few folding chairs on the lawn, a cooler tipped over near the porch. I parked across the street. I didn't go to argue. I didn't want a confrontation. I just wanted to see them in their comfort zone one last time. To observe how calmly they lived in the house I'd been paying for, how easily they moved through a space they'd always treated as rightfully theirs. I watched as my dad came out with a bag of trash and tossed it carelessly into the bin, then lit a cigarette. My mom appeared a minute later with a glass of lemonade, handed it to him, kissed his cheek. They looked fine, unbothered, like they hadn't betrayed anyone, like this was just a normal Wednesday morning. Then the front door opened again, and Kayla stepped out, hand on her hip, belly forward, phone pressed to her ear. I saw her face twist as she listened. Then she looked around, spotted my car across the street, and narrowed her eyes. She started marching toward me. I lowered my window halfway, keeping my expression neutral. She didn't even wait for a greeting. You're seriously going to let strangers kick mom and dad out of their house? You're really okay with that? I didn't respond. They raised you, Aaron. They gave you everything. And now you're selling them out over some stupid party. I raised an eyebrow. This isn't about the party. Then what is it? She snapped. Some kind of sick power play? You think you're better than us because you make money now? Is that it? No, I said evenly. I think I'm better than you because I never lied to anyone to get what I wanted. That shut her up for a moment. She crossed her arms. You're going to regret this. I smiled just a little. That's what people say when they're the ones about to lose everything. She opened her mouth to say something else, probably another dig, maybe tears, maybe a guilt trip, but my phone buzzed. A text from an old friend. Just saw the listing. You really sold it, huh? Never thought you'd actually go through with it. Proud of you, man. Kayla leaned in, trying to glance at the screen. Oh, what? You bragging about this now? No, I said, rolling up the window. Just getting congratulations. And I drove away. That night, things got messy. First came the group text. My mom, my dad, and Kayla. Paragraphs of venom. Accusations of betrayal. Claims that I was mentally unstable, cold-hearted, selfish. My mom even wrote, "You're cutting your own blood out like we're strangers." I almost replied with, "Strangers don't ask for money and then pretend you don't exist at their parties." But I didn't. Instead, I forwarded the whole thread to my lawyer. She replied within minutes, "Don't respond. Let me handle it." But that wasn't the part that shook me. No, that came a few hours later, when I got a knock at my apartment door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole, and there stood my aunt, of all people. My mom's older sister, Aunt Marianne. I hadn't seen her in nearly 2 years. I opened the door cautiously. Aunt Marianne? She looked furious. We need to talk. And as soon as she stepped inside, she said something that made my blood run cold. They didn't just lie to you about the party, Aaron. They lied to you about the house. About everything. And that's when the real story began to unravel. I stared at Aunt Marianne like she'd grown a second head. She was the only one in the family who ever treated me like a real adult. I hadn't heard from her in ages, not since she and my mom had a falling out over some inheritance drama years ago. And now she was in my living room, arms crossed, fire in her eyes. What do you mean they lied? I asked, shutting the door behind her. She looked around my apartment, half surprised, half nodding approval. Nice place. Paid for it yourself, I assume. Every penny. Right, she muttered. Not like them. I motioned for her to sit. She didn't. She took a breath, then hit me with it. The house was never supposed to be theirs, Aaron. I blinked. What? That house? The one you've been paying for all these years? It was meant to be yours. Your grandmother left it in her will, to you. You were 17 when she passed. Your parents told you she left them everything, but that wasn't true. I sat down hard on the arm of my couch. That's not possible. Oh, it's very possible. Your grandmother was sharp. She saw through your parents' favoritism early on. Kayla could do no wrong in their eyes. You? You were the backup plan. The one they leaned on, but never praised. Your grandma didn't like that. She told me herself before she died, I'm leaving the house to Aaron. I want him to have something permanent. I swallowed. So what happened? They changed the paperwork. Your parents claimed you were too young, that you couldn't handle the responsibility. Said they'd hold on to it until you were ready. I laughed bitterly, and I've been paying them to live in my house ever since. Marian nodded grimly. I only found out recently. I was cleaning out old files and found a photocopy of the original will. Your name was on it, clear as day. She reached into her bag and pulled it out, a weathered document, faded but legible. My name, my grandmother's signature, the property address. I didn't know whether to scream or break something. They used me, I muttered. They used me for years, and when I finally grew a spine, they made me the villain. Marian finally Saturday, they don't know I'm here, by the way. They've been calling everyone in the family trying to rally support, claiming you've gone off the rails. But I figured, maybe you should finally know the truth. The room was quiet for a long moment. I stared at the will, a knot forming in my throat. I wasn't just mad. I was grieving something I didn't even know I'd lost. My grandmother had trusted me. She saw value in me when my parents didn't. And they stole that from me. Erased it. Buried it. I sold the house, I finally said. To a cash buyer. It closes in 10 days. Marian smiled, a slow, proud grin. Good. Let them start over like the rest of us. But I wasn't done. I stood up, pacing now. You said they've been calling the family, trying to paint me as unstable? Oh, absolutely. Your mom even called cousin Rachel and said you're having a midlife crisis at 32. Perfect, I said, grabbing my laptop. Then let's make things crystal clear. What are you doing? I'm writing a letter. One email. To every family member they called. Marian looked intrigued. And what are you going to say? I opened a blank document and started typing. Dear family, you may have heard some version of recent events from my parents or Kayla. Before you form opinions, I thought I'd offer mine. Not to convince you, but to clarify what's been buried for years. For over 5 years, I've paid the mortgage, taxes, and maintenance on the family home. Not because I had to, but because I was asked. Quietly. Repeatedly. I was told it was temporary. It never was. Last week, I was invited to what was called a quiet dinner. In reality, it was a baby shower for Kayla, funded with my money, celebrated with lies, and publicly attributed to me without my consent. That night, I reviewed the deed. I confirmed I was still listed as a co-owner, the only one paying anything on the property. So I sold it. And then, thanks to Aunt Marianne, I discovered the most painful part. The house was never theirs to begin with. My grandmother left it to me. My parents lied, manipulated, and used me for over a decade while pretending it was their generosity, keeping the roof overhead. I'm done being silent. I'm done being the invisible one. If you want to judge me, feel free. But do so knowing all the facts. Aaron. Marianne leaned over my shoulder. That'll rattle them. Good. I said, clicking send. Let them spin that. Within 24 hours, chaos erupted. My cousin Rachel texted me. I had no idea. That's disgusting. Uncle Tom emailed. I always thought something was off. Good on you for standing up. Even Kayla's fiancé, a guy I barely knew, messaged me privately. I'm sorry, man. I had no idea what you've been dealing with. Then came the inevitable. My parents called me. They didn't scream this time. They didn't cry. They didn't apologize. Instead, my dad said, You've made your point. Now undo it. I paused. What? Reverse the sale. Fix this. You've embarrassed the family enough. I laughed. I couldn't help it. You still think this is about embarrassment? It's about stability, my mom chimed in. We'll be homeless. No, you'll be adults. You can rent. You can downsize. You can figure it out like everyone else. You ungrateful little, my dad began, but I cut him off. No, not this time. You lied. You stole. You paraded me around like a piggy bank, and when I finally said no, you played the victim. I owe you nothing. And I hung up. I never heard from them again. The house sold smoothly. The buyers were a young couple, expecting their first child. The irony wasn't lost on me. A week after the closing, I visited one last time. The new owners hadn't moved in yet. I stood at the gate and looked at the place. It didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a lie I'd finally stepped out of. Then I walked away. A month later, I bought a cabin in the mountains. Nothing fancy, just peace, quiet, and a view that reminded me what life looked like when it wasn't clouded by guilt. And on the mantel, in a simple frame, sits the original will. Not as a trophy, as a reminder. Some things may be stolen, but the truth, that always finds its way back.